So layers control the color of your object. They control the line type, whether it's dashed or solid, etc. They can be used to categorize your objects. So here's a little screenshot. Layers have different names. And so if you're making doors, you want to put them in that door category, right? So you can use the layers to categorize your objects. They help you isolate certain objects. So if you only want to look at doors, you can isolate the door layer. And then layer walk is one of the first commands that we'll go over. Layer walk opens up this window, and initially everything will be highlighted in blue, which means we can see all those objects on our screen. But later we'll use it to isolate objects and just see one layer at a time. Once we go through that layer walk, we'll open up the Layer Properties Manager. The shortcut for that is LA. This is a really important thing that we'll use a lot. So just looking at this drawing, you can see lots of colors, but you might recognize that similar objects are the same color. So all of these room numbers have a red rectangle, red leader, and the numbers are white. These chairs are all light blue. The desks are all green. The telephones are all green. The computers are magenta. Walls, these cubicle walls are dark blue. The exterior walls are white. So just visually, these colors help us recognize what we're looking at, right? But those colors are controlled by the layer. If you, let's see, if you just hover your cursor over an object, it'll have a little pop-up. It'll tell you what kind of object it is, and then it'll tell you the color is by layer, hopefully. And then the layer name for this particular object is 1-part. And the line type is also by layer. If I try that somewhere else, let me try it on this door here. The color is controlled by the layer name is door, and the line type is controlled by the layer. So just a little information when you hover. If you select an object, I'll select this chair, right click, open properties, you can get more information. So while that chair is selected at the top, again, it tells me it's a block. And under general, this is usually layer things. So the color is by layer, the layer name is chair, line type by layer, line weight by layer, transparency by layer. So you do typically want all of this to be by layer. If you change this to, let's say, red, ignore that this did not turn red. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But if you change this to red, that is considered an override. If you create an override, that object is no longer following the layer settings. And so you might get frustrated when this doesn't follow the layer settings. So try not to create overrides, try to use by layer. Same thing, line type. If you were to change it to dashed or something here, you're overriding the layer settings. And then later in the future, maybe it's not you, maybe someone else is getting into that drawing and they're trying to change something about the layer and it's not working. It's because there's an override. So try not to do that. Let's open up the layer walk. You can type LAYWALK, or on the home tab, layer panel, you have to go to that drop down. In the drop down, it looks like a stack of papers with 2 footprints. That is layer walk. So this little window should pop up. So like I mentioned earlier, everything is highlighted in blue. We see all the objects on our screen. Let's click on 0. So 0 is a special layer. Every single drawing should have a 0 layer. The program comes with the 0 layer. If you did not have a 0 layer, if you had no layers, you could not draw anything. So they give you 0 as a starting point. You can draw something if you have that 0 layer, right? But in the end, you do not want to leave your objects on that 0 layer. 0 does not give me any information. So all the objects you see right now are on 0. We need to fix them. So this little office, we're going to be fixing that as an exercise later. Click on one fern. So this layer name does not really make sense with room numbers. So as an exercise later, we will change the layer name or maybe create a new layer name for the room numbers. Okay, click on one part. This kind of makes sense. These are cubicle partition walls. So one part, partition, that kind of makes sense. Click on one wall. That definitely makes sense. Click on chairs, CPU, door, fixtures, furniture, kitchen. Okay, so most of the layers make sense. And the layer walk is a way for you to double check. Because often you start drawing and you're not really thinking about layers. And at the end, you're like, oh, actually, I put that on the wrong layer. This can help you just double check. Did you put everything on the correct layer? Right. And maybe it's not an issue for you, but when you send it to someone else and they're trying to hide the furniture, they accidentally hide other things because it's on the furniture layer. So yeah, just think about that. Let's close this layer walk. Down here, it should have restore on exit check marked. So when we close this, everything comes back. All right, so everything is back. So let's go to the layer properties. So up in the home tab of the ribbon, layers panel, the big button is layer properties, or you can type LA enter. And so this is the window we saw earlier with the parking lot. You can stretch it, make it bigger. If this is the first time you've opened this window, these columns might be all scrunched together. You can put your cursor between the column headers, click and drag to make them bigger. Or you can also, when you see the double arrow between the headers, you can just double click. Double clicking kind of auto adjusts those column widths. All right, once you have it so you can read all those headers, we're going to go through each of these columns and explain. I'm going to explain why it's important, what it's for. Okay. So starting with the status column, the status column has a single green check mark. Whichever layer has the green check mark is considered your current layer. So right now, green check mark is in front of 0. 0 happens to be red. So if I were to draw something, it's red, right? It's on the 0 layer. To move that green check mark, you have a couple of choices. You can double click. So maybe I want to use the chairs layer. I'll double click on this parallelogram. The green check mark has moved to the chairs layer and it's cyan. So if I draw now, I'm drawing on the chairs layer and it's cyan. Okay. Another option, if you don't like double clicking, you can also just select a layer name. And then up here, there's a green check button. So that will also move the status check mark. So doors are also red. You get the idea. So that's the status column. You can always organize these columns by clicking the header. So if I click status, it brings the check mark to the top. If I click status again, it puts the check mark at the bottom. The name column, if I click name, it's reverse alphabet. If I click name again, it's alphabetical order. Numbers are always at the top. Symbols also are at the top. So if you put like a dash or an underscore in the front of the name, that'll bring it to the top. If you click color, it puts the same colors together. So cyan are all together, red is all together. So go back to name. So the name column, 0 is the only layer that comes with the program. If you have any other layers in here, someone created them, or they're in your template and someone created the template, right? So these are created by somebody. You can change the names, but depending on your company, right? If you have a template, they may not want you to change the names. But if you are creating your own layers, you can definitely change the names. Couple of methods, you can right click, rename, or you can just click twice. It's not a double click, it's select the layer, click one more time, and that's going to let you rename. So for practice, the ones, the layers that have a number 1 in front, just remove the dash and remove the 1. So we're practicing renaming, removing the 1 and the dash. So this is a very basic drawing. It's just for class. In a real project file, there can be 50 layers, 100 layers. It could be a lot of layers, and depends if you're bringing in things from other disciplines, clients. So sometimes it's hard to, not hard, but it takes time to scroll through all that long list of layers. You can type the first letter of the layer name and it'll jump you there. So if I'm on 0 and I type P, it'll jump me to the first P layer name. I can type F, it'll jump me to, well, actually jumps you to the middle of the F's right there. So that's one method, just typing that first letter and take you closer to that layer name. Another option is in this upper right corner, there's a search. So if I want layers that start with F, I can type F and leave the star afterwards. It'll find all the layers that start with F. If you know the ending letter, and you can clear it out with this X. If I want all the letters that end with an S, I could do star S. So these are the layers that end with an S. Or if I need to find something in the middle, I can do star UR star. So these are all the layers that have a UR in the middle. Now we have this on column and this freeze column. I want to make sure you can see my drawing when I play with this. Okay, so first I will demonstrate what it looks like on screen, and then I will explain what's happening in the background. So the on column has light bulbs, and I'm going to play with the wall layer. So if I turn that light bulb off, I click on the light bulb, it turns off, the walls disappear. If I click to turn the light bulb on, the walls come back. Then in the freeze column, there's a little sun. If I click on the sun, it turns into a snowflake, the walls are gone. I click on the snowflake, it turns into a sun, the walls are back. So visually on screen, it looks the same, right? They disappear, they come back. But there's a difference between using on and freeze. On is for things that you temporarily want to hide, but in the end, you want to bring back before you print. So when you isolate a layer, you're using an on-off function. Freeze is more long-term. It's for things that you do not want to see pretty much ever. It could be ever in model space, or it could be you never want to see it in the paper space, in the sheet. So for example, if I were the civil engineer and an architect gave me their building file, I don't care about doors. I don't care about doors. I don't care about chairs. I don't care about desks. I don't care about cubicle walls or the fixtures, the appliances. I don't care about those things. I would freeze all of those interior items and just keep the outline of the building, right? Because I, as the civil engineer, don't care about those interior things. Freezing it means never show it to me, right? Freezing things speeds up your drawing. It says, don't think about these at all. They're not deleted. You could bring them back, but just don't waste your energy thinking about these items. And then your drawing actually will speed up and run faster without those items. You can still play with the on-off while things stay frozen. Okay? So it keeps them in two categories, things you never want to see and things you just temporarily want to turn off and then turn back on. Next, we have this lock column. So if I was designing the building and then I was handing this over to the interior designer to work on the inside, and I don't want them to mess up my walls, I might lock the wall layer. So if you look at the building here, as I unlock and lock, locking it fades the color of that layer. So it's more of a grayish color. If I hover my cursor over that object, my cursor gets a little lock symbol. So it tells me that it's locked. What does lock mean? Lock means you can still see it, snap to it, measure it, but you cannot modify. All these modify tools will not work on the walls when they are locked. So it just prevents someone from accidentally making a change. It still allows them to unlock it and change it. But hopefully you're on a team who communicates well. If they see that it's locked, hopefully they'll ask you first, hey, I see that I need to make a change here. Is it okay? Before they actually go and make a change. So it just prevents you from accidentally making a change. All right, so I will unlock it. The plot column. Plotting or printing is covered in level 2, but I can still just explain this. If something is set to no plot, I'll go ahead and click on the walls again. When you set it to no plot, it has a little circle with a dash in it. You can still see it, you can still modify it, but it will not print, right? Everything on the inside will print, but these white walls will not print. So you don't typically do that to an object you're trying to construct, but a lot of companies will have a layer called no plot. And that layer, of course, is set to not print. And they pick some color that they don't use very often, maybe orange. And what this is used for is just for your own notes, right? Something that you want to remind yourself, or maybe it's helping yourself sketch something, but you don't want to print that by accident. So for example, I'm looking at this bathroom and I notice this is the boys' bathroom, has a urinal. This is the girls' bathroom, no urinal, but a girls' bathroom usually has walls and doors. And I'm like, oh, shoot, maybe I need to add that, but my manager is not here. He's at a meeting. So I will maybe draw an ellipse around that area and then maybe create some text with my question. Do we need stalls, right? And so I leave it there. I keep working. And when my manager comes back, this will remind me to ask that question. But my manager comes back, he's in a rush, he has another meeting. He's like, quickly print me this floor plan. I need to bring it to my meeting. You print it, and luckily this will not print. So they're not going to see that little note when you print it out. So yeah, no plot layers are typically separated. Not any of these should all print, but you have your own little no plot layer there. There's also a special layer that pops up on its own called def points, and def points don't print. So some companies just use the def points layer instead of making their own. So color, I do have something to say about color. You can set the color here, right? So by clicking on the color square, you get to see this little menu of colors. There are 3 tabs. I'm just going to discuss the first 2. So in the first tab, most companies will set this row of colors to print black. It'll be different versions of black. So maybe a thin black line, maybe a thicker black line, but they all print black, and they are used to represent new items, design features, construction features, proposed features, right? Then a lot of companies will set all of these to print some version of gray. They could be lighter gray, darker gray, thicker gray, thinner gray, different kinds of gray. And these are also gray. And gray represents existing conditions, existing items, existing features on site that are already there. Okay, so it's kind of a background to your design. If you really need to print color, this True Color tab gives you this, I don't know what you call it, but rainbow, that you can pick any color you want from here, and then you can lighten it or darken it from here. And these colors are represented with 3 numbers, red, green, blue values. This will print this color if you have a color printer. You have to make sure you have a color printer. So sometimes you're not doing construction documents, maybe it's just an exhibit to bring to a meeting, and you want to highlight certain objects with red or whatever. So you may have to come in here and make sure that you're picking a red that will actually print red. Because if you pick from here, it's going to print black, right? So you want to go here, make sure it actually prints red. What else? The index colors, if you click on one, it has a single number. Actually, I have to, there we go. So if you click on any of these, you can see they are represented by a single digit, not digit, but number. And then over here, these are represented by 3 numbers. So that's another way to kind of tell, is it color or is it not color? All right, so I will just cancel that. I want you guys to just make one change though. Click on the wall layer and let's change the wall color. Click on the color square. Let's make our walls cyan. Go ahead and click on cyan. Cyan is color 4, it's right there. And click OK. All right, so as soon as you change the color in Layer Manager, those walls have now changed color. All right, so by using a color by layer, it makes it really quick to change a color on your screen. You don't have to select every single wall to change it. Let's actually change it to dark blue. There we go. Cyan's fine. Cyan's fine. Okay. The next column is line type, and I want you guys to do this one with me too. For the walls, again, for this exterior walls, click on the line type called continuous. You'll notice that continuous is the only thing available in this menu. This is the menu of line types that are currently loaded, but you can click the load button to load more. So let's go click load. This is a long list of line types that are already available with your program. If you wanted to create more, you can come for level 2 and we can teach you how to create more. But in this list, let's just pick dashed. Once you select dashed, click OK. And there it shows up in your loaded list. Select it from the loaded line types and click OK. So it should show up in Layer Manager. But you may not see the change on the walls. There is something called line type scale that we'll talk about it once we get out of this window. So we'll have to fix the line type scale to make it show up properly. Go into the line weight column where it says default, click on default. And then you can choose how thick it's going to print, right? Some people control line weight through here. Most people that I have seen, most companies I have seen, control it through the printer settings. But today we'll just show through here. Let's pick 0.3, no, let's go a little bit bigger, 0.4 millimeters. So this will print on a piece of paper, 0.4 millimeters thick. Click OK. All right, so even though I changed it in the Layer Manager, I don't see that change on my screen. So there is something called line weight hide show that we have to turn on. So we'll get to that. And then the last thing that I'll talk about is the transparency. If you want the colors to print faded, you can fade it by a percentage. So it can like do 50%. So transparency fades the color and it also makes it transparent. You could see through that color. So if something was underneath, you could see that other line work or text underneath. I'll just cancel that. I don't actually want to change it. And the rest, this is going to be for level 2. CAD Masters offers online and classroom training for a variety of Autodesk software. For more information, go to www.cadmasters.com or give us a call at 925-939-1378. Right. So we'll close the Layer Manager and then we'll talk about the line type and the line weight. Okay, so for line types, your line types, if they are dashed or something other than continuous, they have a scale. And so typically you want the line type scale for your entire drawing to be set to 1. 1 sets it to its original size. So in the code that defines your line type, it should say something like 1 inch dash, ½ inch space, 1 inch dash, ½ inch space, and it repeats, right? And so setting line type scale equal to 1 sets it back to that original size. Then we have these other variables. The model space line type scale only affects the model tab. The paper space line type scale only affects the layout tabs, and every layout tab has its own setting, right? Setting those to 1 makes them annotative. Annotative means the size of the dash will be multiplied by the scale of either model space or paper space. So let's try it out, and then I can demonstrate what I'm talking about. So I'm in model space. That means I'm in this model tab. Layout is paper space. This is model space. So in model space, we can start by setting the line type scale, LTSCALE. Oops. Line type scale. And we want to make sure it's 1. If it's already 1, just hit enter. Next, we want to check the model space line type scale. And we want that to also be 1. 0 means it's not annotative, but 1 means it is annotative. We're not going to worry about the paper space, just the model space. Once you set those up, the first thing we can try is to regenerate. RE is regen. It may or may not make a difference. So let's try RE. Oh, it did make a difference on mine. So mine shows the dashes on those walls. If yours did not change, the next thing you can do is play with the scale. So there should be a scale at the bottom of your screen. When you click on it, there's a bunch of different options in there. These are architectural scales. You can pick something and type RE enter to see how it affects the dashes. Okay, so depending on that scale, the dashes could get larger or smaller. So I'll just use 1/8 inch equals a foot. That's an architectural scale. It means 1/8 inch on a piece of paper equals a foot in real life, or a foot in model space. So leave it at that. And then the last thing about line types is the line weight. We had set our line weight, I think, to 0.4 millimeters, but I don't see these walls being any thicker than the other lines. If you go to your menu, bottom right corner, look for line weight. Make sure that has a check mark. Once you see that line weight has a check mark, look at the bottom of your screen. It's this button with the 3 different line weights. Let me show. Yeah, it's right here. So this line weight button looks like that, right? So you want to turn it on. So down here, I'm going to turn that on. It's blue, and you can see it looks much thicker. But the thing that is weird about line weight is when you print, it's going to be 0.4 millimeters on a piece of paper. But when you're in model space, it's 0.4 millimeters on your screen. So when I'm zooming out, it looks way thicker. And when I'm zooming in, it looks thinner. Because if you took a ruler to your screen, this is 0.4 millimeters. So every time you zoom out, it looks thicker because trying to maintain that 0.4 on your screen. So that's why we have the option to turn it off, because it's a little annoying. So just go ahead, take a look, and then just turn it off. We don't need to stare at that. CAD Masters offers online and classroom training for a variety of Autodesk software. For more information, go to www.cadmasters.com or give us a call at 925-939-1378.